Alright, this is the big one. We're doing movies. You saw the title. I'm saving books for last, even though it's going to be like a shorter list because I think that people probably are the most interested in books, so save the best for last, right? But movies is the one that I have the most to say about. I decided to do it as two videos so that I could talk about everything because I started trying to kind of be like, okay, well, what if I just do top 10 and maybe just honorable mention everything else? And there was just so many really good things that I couldn't bring myself to whittle it down any further, and so I thought, you know what, let's just put everything except the top 10 into its own separate video. If people care, they can watch it. If not, they can just skip it and just watch the top 10 video, and that's fine, but I'll still, get my thoughts out. And so, like, there was a lot of stuff I saw this year that really, really blew my mind. Maybe the highest density of really good stuff in a year ever. At least since I was a literal child and I was like first seeing movies for the first time. When I was like 13, 14, and I was writing down stuff from the Video Hound Golden Retriever Guide and the IMDb Top 250 and the AFI Top 100 and going to fucking Video Update on Tuesdays for those 99-cent VHS rentals, you know what I'm saying? It was a great year for new films. I will say that there are quite a few movies from this year on this list, including 3 of the top 5 films of the year, and all of the top 5 films on this list, which I won't be in this video, but whatever, are I would number I've put onto my unranked top 100 movies I've ever seen, which is pretty wild. With all of that said, let's get into this list. Now, this list is going to contain movies, short films, television shows, miniseries, whatever. If it is a filmic audiovisual piece, it qualifies for this list, and it is ranked. As much as I struggle and as much as I have continued to fucking noodle around and move things up and down, and I'm never going to be satisfied, I just was like, I'm done. And so take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. There was also, near the end, there were things that it had been a little while since I had seen that were starting to maybe drift down the list, and then I rewatched them to reassess where I wanted to put them. There was one movie that had fallen down to like 18, and then when I rewatched it, it moved up to 7. So, it's important that we do that. Also, we had the movie that was in 4th place, I rewatched and moved it up to 2. But we'll get there. And some of these movies also, I want to say, are things that I have actually seen before, but it had been so long since I saw them that I remembered very little about them. And so they were rewatches, but they were things that I had seen like once, 10 plus years ago, and after that amount of time, even more so than with a book, like, you really forget so much of a movie if you only see it like one time. Movies beg to be rewatched, I think. And so yeah, I included a few of those. If the experience felt new enough, I included them on the list. I think that's enough bullshitting. Let's just really quickly speed run through the honorable mentions, which are things that ranked below 25th place, but I would give a 5 out of 5 too, so I wanted to give them some love. The first is Satoshi Kon's Tokyo Godfathers, which I watched on Christmas because it's a Christmas film. It's an anime film. Satoshi Kon, a guy who's known for making dark, surreal, very adult, kind of horrifying anime films about blurring the line between reality and fantasy. Tokyo Godfathers, totally not that at all. Maybe not quite a family film, but yeah, about three homeless people in Tokyo who find a baby in the garbage and take it upon themselves to reunite it with its family. Very sweet, funny, great movie, great characters, very wide ranging of emotions, and it's such a great madcap story of just like people going on this adventure and all these great set pieces of hijinks, and it's just a good time, very good time, and will definitely be in my heavy Christmas rotation from here on out. Second thing on the list is the Hoff Twins, which is a short documentary, which was released this year on the Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan YouTube channel. Channel 5, I've talked about before, is a sort of Vox Populi, man on the street series of YouTube where they go out, and Andrew Callahan is, you know, the man with the microphone, and he goes to places to find interesting people to have conversations with them. One of the two people who are the sort of behind-the-scenes part of the team is director Nick Mosher, who directed this short film, Hoff Twins, which is a 17-minute short. And he did it on his own, without the other guys from Channel 5, and it's not in the style of Channel 5 or anything like that. It's just a straightforward documentary profile piece of these two brothers, identical twins who are white, who live in this predominantly black neighborhood in Northern California, and it is a really fascinating little glimpse into a world that we don't really see in popular media a lot. On Letterboxd, all of the reviews are like, don't let Sean Baker find out about this, or don't let Harmony Korine find out about these guys. And so I left a review that was like, expert difficulty, Letterboxd review challenge, review this movie or any movie about white poverty without comparing it to Sean Baker and Harmony Korine. Because it's not really tonally anything like either of them. Maybe more Korine. The humor for Korine is definitely there. Not that Sean Baker's films are humorless, but anyways, very good little. You can just check that out on YouTube, and it's a very good time and very enlightening and enjoyable movie. The next thing I have on the honorable mentions is season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows, which is a television show on FX. You can watch on Hulu. What We Do in the Shadows proves once again to be the best sitcom on television, based on the 2014 film by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. Just so consistently funny. One of the best casts in sitcom history. Some of the best characters in sitcom history. Just so consistently funny. The main thing that's keeping this off the list proper is that it isn't much more than just really funny, which is fine. Not everything needs to be, but it just doesn't have the weight, the gravitas of some of the other things that are on this list, but it's absolutely worth your time. Next, speaking of Sean Baker, is Red Rocket, which is his new film, which just came out, wide released like a week ago, and is on VOD and stuff you can get. It's a story of a down-on-his-luck former porn star who is now middle-aged, in his 40s, who returns to Texas, is where he's from, to sort of grift his way back into the hearts of all of the people he left behind. Sean Baker previously had a lot of success with The Florida Project, which was his previous film, and then his first feature, Tangerine, which I have not seen. And Red Rocket was very good, and I really liked it a lot. but it is a really kind of hard and unpleasant and unfun movie that is about a bad person who does bad things and doesn't learn anything, doesn't change, and doesn't grow. And I like that about it a lot. I like that about the movie a lot. But it also maybe keeps me emotionally distant from it in comparison to other things that are also very good. So, yeah. And also I will say that people were talking a lot about how Licorice Pizza is this film about this relationship between like an older woman and a teenage boy, and it's pedophilic and groomy, and if the genders were reversed, would people be okay with it? No, there would be this outcry, blah 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 blah. Well, Sean Baker, he made a movie that is unambiguously about a man in his mid-40s sexually grooming a 17-year-old high school student. And so I just, I think that I'm going to actually use this to transition to a different thing on the list, which is Voir, which was a docu-series on Netflix that was produced by David Fincher and created, at least in part, by the two guys who were behind the YouTube channel Every Frame Painting, which was sort of like one of the first, that sort of established the style of the modern video essay, particularly a film video essay. And they did 3 of the 6 episodes that they did for this season. And one of those episodes, which was not one of the ones they did, was about liking stuff where you don't like the characters. And it was about a guy, written by a guy whose favorite film was Lawrence of Arabia. And he talked a lot about a lot of different things, particularly Scorsese, people who make films that are exploring, topics, characters, themes, people who are unlikable, and how we have to, remember, we have to not have internet brain. You need to not have terminal Twitter brain. You have to remember that making art is not condoning content, Anyways, that is my Red Rocket into Voir transition. Voir was very good. The first episode of it I didn't like, which is the reason why it's not on this list. The first episode was about Jaws and Hollywood blockbusters and stuff, and I was like, meh, whatever, don't care. There were other 5 episodes I liked quite a bit. My favorite was probably the one that focused on one of my favorite films, Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, which is a Park Chan-wook Korean film. The third film in his Vengeance trilogy, which started with Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and then most famously the center film was Oldboy. But I have always found Lady Vengeance to be damn near as good as Oldboy, and it has been one of my favorite movies since I was in high school for a very long time. And it's the essay was about revenge films and how strong and storied of a tradition that trope is, something we're very comfortable with, why we're comfortable with it, why revenge is sort of a justification for violence. It sort of gives us permission to enjoy violence. And then it explored why Lady Vengeance subverts that by asking us to condone violence that we maybe shouldn't, and confronts us with our own complacency and sort of asks us what we would do were we in the shoes of the characters in the film, and how uncomfortable that makes us. There's a couple other really good episodes of Voir, and it's on Netflix. It's a Netflix series, so you can check that out. Next is Promising Young Woman, which came out right at the end in December 2020, but it was only in theaters, and I wasn't going to a fucking movie theater in December 2020, so I didn't get to see it until early 2021. During awards season, it was nominated for a number of Oscars. It won for original screenplay. very good movie. Speaking of revenge, it's a revenge movie, a sort of taking the one of the most common types of revenge movie, which is the rape and revenge movie, but twisting it, doing a sort of new and really interesting take on it, and some really phenomenal writing, some really, really phenomenal casting. Bo Burnham as the second lead in this film. I had not ever really cared about Bo Burnham before this, and he really won me over in a huge way in this film. His performance was really good, and I probably would not have watched Inside or, familiarized myself with the rest of his works if I hadn't seen Promising Young Woman. So, and then the final thing on the honorable mentions list is the first season of the HBO original series Painting with John, created by and starring John Lurie, who he's a if you're familiar with the world of counterculture in the late 20th century, you may be familiar with John Lurie. He was a jazz musician, saxophonist who was part of the downtown music scene, the jazz scene in the 80s. As one of the two leaders alongside his brother Evan of the Lounge Lizards, frequently collaborated with people like John Zorn or Mark Rebo or guys like that. And then he started acting. He had leads in a couple of Jim Jarmusch films. Down by Law is the one that I always think of. I love that film very deeply. And he also acted in like Oz. And then in the early 90s, he had a short-lived TV show on the IFC that was called Fishing with John, where he went fishing with celebrity friends of his like Dennis Hopper or Matt Dillon or Tom Waits, and it was a very surreal, sort of goofy, comedy, existential, weird thing that was put out on DVD by Criterion and had this sort of cult following. And so Painting with John, as the title would kind of imply, is a sort of sequel of sorts to Fishing with John. In the early 2000s, John Lurie started having really significant health problems that required him to functionally retire from acting and music and turn his focus to painting watercolors, which has been his primary creative output for the last 20 years. And so Painting with John is a sort of docu-series, memoir, philosophical essay series about art and life and whatever the fuck John feels like talking about. Very loose and free form and experimental and fascinating and unlike anything else that's really happening on television. God bless HBO for taking chances on weird shit like this and consistently being like the home for the best content in episodic storytelling for audiovisual medium. The reason why this is low on the list, I haven't watched the whole season yet. I'm sorry. I watched the first 2. There's 6 episodes. But I wanted to mention it because it is very good. So that gets an honorable mention. Now that is honorable mentions out of the way. Now let's get into the list proper. At number 25, I mentioned it not that long ago. From 2018, it is Sean Baker's The Florida Project.
Thanks for calling the Magic Castle, it's Amber. Yeah, sure do. $38 a night.
Okay, I warned you. One drip and you're out.
Oh, come on!
Out now.
It's gonna melt outside.
It's melting inside, too.
But Bobby...
Out.
Thank you very much.
You're not welcome! The man who lives in here gets arrested a lot. These are the rooms we're not supposed to go in. But let's go anyway. Could you give us some change, please? The doctor said we have asthma and we gotta eat ice cream right away.
Here you go.
Hey,
Haley.
We got a situation here. Open up. It's only second week of the summer and there's already been a dead fish in the pool.
We're trying to get it back alive.
Water balloons thrown at tourists.
Boobies! Boobies!
I failed as a mother, Mooney.
Yeah, Mom, you're a disgrace.
New job?
Yeah.
If you're working, who's looking after Mooney?
You're not my father.
I don't want to be your
You
father.
can't treat me like this.
You don't think everybody knows what's up, Haley? Everybody.
She's about to cry. I can always tell when adults are about to cry. Why is my mom yelling?
Just talking, they gotta figure something out.
See, I took you on a safari. Whoa. Let's go, come on.
Have a nice day.
Love you, baby!
I love you too.
So this had, you know, a small amount of Oscar buzz and stuff. Willem Dafoe got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for it. It's a story about a group of children who live in a hotel in Orlando near Disneyland and live in, you know, poverty, like pretty severe poverty. Focuses mainly on a girl named Mooney and her mother, who is a sex worker, and then it also focuses on Willem Dafoe, who plays a character named Bobby, who is the manager of this hotel, and he has to kind of balance his empathy for the people he has to, you know, be, you know, he has to be, he wants to care for these people and help them, but he also has to be the authority figure in their life. He has to get their rent from them, etc., etc. This movie really deftly handles what living in this kind of poverty feels like in a way that does not feel exploitative or pornographic or even cynical. It just feels very real. It also really handles being a kid, at least what my experience was like for being a kid, better than almost any other movie I've ever seen. It's not for kids, but I think it really accurately captures the child experience. I will say this movie will 110% fuck your day up, because it is so sad. It is just... I cried so fucking much at this stupid ass movie. It just fucked my day up, like, real bad. So be prepared for that if you go into this. And you know, I really did enjoy it a lot. Sean Baker, and I mentioned before in the honorable mentions, his new movie Red Rocket I liked quite a bit too. So, you know, if you're interested in the topics and in a really good, well-made drama film, then this is going to be up your alley. Number 24, complete tonal 180. From earlier from this year, 2021 release, we have Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk, written by the writer of the John Wick films.
So they took maybe $20 and an old watch? Mr. Manson, did you even take a swing?
No.
Could have taken her, Dad.
Heard you had some excitement last night. I wish they'd have picked my place, you know?
Why didn't you take him out?
I was just trying to keep the damage to a minimum.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
You okay? Because you don't look okay.
There's a long dormant piece of me.
I'll
so very badly wants out.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up. It's been a hell of a day.
You can see that.
For 12 years, I worked for some very dangerous people. Everybody get to the basement.
What is happening?
Don't call 911. I used to be what they call an auditor. The last guy anyone wants to see at their door. Because it meant you didn't have long to live. But I left it behind to start a family. Hey! I might have overcorrected.
When you left, you abandoned a certain debt that needs repayment. And your creditor is aware of your resurrection.
They came after my family.
They stole my kitty cat bracelet.
And you don't fucking do that!
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet!
You look like shit, Dad.
You should see the other guys.
Who the fuck are you?
Me? I'm nobody.
In theaters only February 26th.
Now, many people, when this film came out, said, this is just John Wick, but with Bob Odenkirk. To which I say, congratulations, you have discovered why this movie rocks fucking cock and is awesome. Like, you know, and it's directed by the guy who directed Hardcore Henry, which I liked quite a bit. So he has a pedigree of being able to do good action, and he lives up to it here. It's a bit of an inverse John Wick, in the sense that someone else is trying to get revenge against him instead of the other way around. It is very much John Wick, though, where it's a middle-aged, former, you know, killer for hire who gets drawn back into the game after leaving for this idyllic home life, and the villains of the film are the Russian mafia. It is very, very much similar to John Wick. But that's okay. You know, I'm not coming to this film for groundbreaking storytelling or anything like that. You know, this is a film about action, and which action is about movement. It's about expressive bodies and set pieces and framing. It's a very visual storytelling medium. The rest of the stuff that gets us there, is set dressing, you know. And so this movie, this is probably the most fun movie that came out this year. I for my money. It's 90 minutes, brisk in and out, wastes no time. Bob Odenkirk, goddamn, I love that guy. He's just so great, and he's great in this, and he brings a huge amount of charm and charisma to the film, which helps make it succeed. Plus, at the end, the team, the three people, it's their family that are fighting in the showdown is him and Christopher Lloyd and the RZA, which, like, man, if there was ever a team writ in the clouds of heaven, that was them. They are the alpha and the omega as far as action trios go, for my money. Number 23, we've got another action film. We've got The Matrix Resurrections.
We can't see it. but we're all trapped inside these strange repeating loops.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
But this is the moment for you to show us what is real. I remember this.
So deja vu. And yet it's obviously all wrong. Maybe this isn't the story we think it is.
They taught you good. Made you believe their world was all you deserved. But some part of you knew that was a lie. Some part of you remembered what was real.
It's so easy to forget how much noise the Matrix pumps into your head. Something else makes the same kind of noise. War.
What happens to Nia? The most important choice in Neo's life. It's not his to make.
She believed in me. It's my turn to believe in her.
Part of me feels like I have been waiting my whole life for you.
If you want to see Trinity again, fight for her!
I saw this in a dream. My dream ended here.
I still know Kung Fu.
Now, the Matrix films, the sequels at least, have largely been, since their release, almost 20 years ago, very divisive films. With I feel like most people being negative towards them. I am not one of those people. No reservations, no compromises, no qualifiers. I love all of the Matrix films. I think that even if the sequels are maybe clunkier and messier and rougher around the edges than the original, they are so much more interesting and philosophical and weird than the original is, and I like that about them even more. And the new one is no different. In a time where big budget, blockbuster, 2.5 hour event films and sequels and remakes and endless series, and all of them are just sort of this vapid nothing. They're never they're almost never really bad, but they're almost never really good either. They're just sort of whatever. You just go, you turn your brain off. They're all the same. The Matrix Resurrections is a movie that has all of the, bullet points of that kind of film, but has a soul. Feels like it was made by a human being with a creative and artistic voice, right? In a way that Marvel movies don't. And that's why I liked it a lot. And it is passionately dorky and dumb and smart at the same time, and just unequivocally going to do whatever it wants. And that's what I love about the Wachowskis. They're unabashedly like losers, and they want to make the movies that they would have thought were the coolest movies that could exist when they were 13 years old. And I love that about them. And I loved how incredibly meta and self-reflexive the first act of the film was about the ideas of sequels and series and remakes and reboots and all of that being an integral part of the story. I thought that for the most part the recastings and stuff were handled pretty well. I thought New Morpheus was good. New Smith, maybe not as much, but that's fine. I can forgive it. Jonathan Groff's not like he's not bad. It's just, you know, like he's not fucking Hugo Weaving. Like, oh my god, that Hugo Weaving. But the fact that Lana Wachowski was able to be like, all of these fucking idiots. There's those tweets where Elon Musk tweeted, "Take the red pill," and then Ivanka Trump quote retweeted it and said, "Taken," and then Lily Wachowski replied and said, "Fuck both of you." This movie, even though Lily wasn't involved with the film, feels like a distillation of that Twitter interaction, where it's like the Matrix has had this huge cultural impact while simultaneously being misunderstood by the overwhelming majority of people who have co-opted its ideas and its language. And so we come back with a remake, a movie where we're rehashing, we're redoing it, we're exploring all the same themes and ideas, but we shed any sort of pretense and subtext. We say unequivocally, this is what The Matrix is about. The Matrix is a love story about people who can fly, and the idea that love is the most powerful force in our world, and that people who have love in their life will always triumph over people who build their lives around power and greed and things like that. Which is such a lame, dorky, dumb thing to make a movie about. But people don't want to do things like that anymore. People aren't allowed to make dorky, silly, over-the-top, passionate movies about love and stuff. Everything has to be about good versus evil and blah. It's boring. I'm sick of it. The Matrix, I understand if you didn't like it or what, it's fine. I don't really care. But it's not like everything else. It feels refreshing, even though it's a retreading of something. It feels soulful and passionate, and most movies with a, 9-figure budget do not. And that's why I loved it. Number 22, we've got some more tonal whiplash here, and we've got our first entry that is something I have actually seen before. From 2010, we have the film Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Recall His Past Lives.
ตาอายมันเป็นหยังอายมื่นตาอยู่มันเป็นหยังจะค่อยบ่เห็นหง
เจนเสียงอะไรอ่ะ
แต่ว่าอายเคยเกิดอยู่หม้องนี้บ่ฮู้ว่าเป็นคนหรือว่าเป็นสัตว์
ไปห้วยแม่นเจ้าบ่ผีบ่ยึดติดกับหม่องใดสิยึดติดแต่กับคนกับสิ่งมีชีวิต
ถ้าคอยบ่มีชีวิตล่ะ
This is a Thai film. Now, I can never remember the name of the director of this film, and I beg forgiveness because he's Thai, and his name is long, and my dumb white brain can't hold it in my memory. So I'm going to now butcher his name. I'm going to try and butcher his name. Apichat Pong Weirasithikul. That's bad. Let's just pretend I didn't do that. He has a new film that has sort of come out this year, Memoria, which I haven't gotten to see yet because of the release structure of it, is that they're only playing it at one theater at a time, and it's going to screen forever, is the idea. And I believe that they are not ever going to release it on physical media, officially. It's just always going to be in one theater somewhere in the world forever, which is really cool, but also means I haven't gotten to see it yet. But this film was the film that brought him to international attention because it was the first Thai film to win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, which is how I found out about it, and I saw it when it first released in America in early 2011, and I really liked it a lot when I saw it, and then I never watched it again, because it wasn't like streaming on any streaming services, and I never was able to find I never came across a copy of it when I worked at the bookstore, and it's never, come down in price to a point where I've scooped it up or anything, so I don't own it. It just sort of faded off into the memory. And then earlier tonight, I rewatched it, and had forgotten most of it. With movies that it's been this long, I kind of, what I remember is like the byline. I remember like the one sentence plot synopsis, but I forget everything else, and I forget how it felt, how watching it made me feel. And this movie is wild. It is slow. First of all, it's a very slow film. It's an hour and 50 minutes or so, but it feels like it's 3 hours long. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just the pacing is very deliberate. It crawls along. And it's very... the way it's shot is very interesting, too, where it's very still. The camera is, at least for the first 2/3 of the film, almost never moves. And some pretty weird shit happens in this movie, too. So Uncle Boonmee is a man who is dying of kidney failure, and the film chronicles his final days. And as he approaches death, he's being cared for by his nephew and his sister-in-law, because he has no immediate family left. But as he approaches death, first the spirit of his wife, who died 19 years before, returns to visit him and be with him in his final days. And then his son returns, and we learn that his son has changed into this sort of human-ape creature. It's called a monkey spirit. That he had discovered and found these monkey spirits and left human society to become one of them. He has a monkey spirit wife and monkey children, and he had forgotten the old world and who he was, and he had left that all behind. But then when he sensed his father dying, he was drawn to come back to human society to be with his father in his final days. And then Boonmee he's very convinced that his death is the result of karma, and it's the punishment basically for his own actions. One thing that he particularly is hung up upon is his role in communist suppression in the 1960s, where communist sympathizers were being killed, and his role in that he feels a great amount of shame for. And this is a film about time, how we experience time and how we experience memory. It's a film that was part of a series of works that the director did about the religions and spiritualities of northern Thailand, rural Thailand, which is very interesting. I spent some, not to be like I'm an expert or anything, but I spent some time in Thailand, a few days. I saw a fucking water buffalo, so like, you know, I had the real experience, right? And I got to interact with some Thai people, and I very much enjoyed my time in the country. And this movie is very spiritual. It feels very heavy. You know, it's a film about dying, but it's also a film about how, you know, we never really die as long as we are remembered. And it's also a film about how everything kind of repeats itself. And the final half hour, 40 minutes of it is very, very wild and interesting. There's some pretty crazy shit that happens in this movie. I don't want to spoil anything, but I highly recommend Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. Number 21 is a film that I talked about in my video I did about movies that I love that everybody else hates, and it's another movie that I had seen before this year, but it had been a really long time, and that is Southland Tales.
I'm going to tell you the story of the journey down the road not taken. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. These are the sordid tales of how it all came crashing down.
This is an epic Los Angeles crime saga.
And you're researching your role?
Yes, it takes place in the near future.
Scientists are saying the future is going to be far more futuristic than they originally predicted.
You're gonna have to wear a bulletproof vest.
Let's talk about your film. What's it really about?
Yes.
They're listening. They're watching. Take him down.
You're not really here.
Don't look so scared, Mr. Centauros. The future is just like you imagine.
Someone must be hiding it. It's like the nervous breakdown of the century.
Nothing that a killer, a porn star, and a tattoo parlor can't handle.
It is time for a surgical strike.
Fascist pigs!
I'm a pimp, and pimps don't commit suicide. It all ends tonight.
It had to be this way.
I know.
There'd be a lot less violence in the world if everyone just got a little more cardio.
Also, when I rewatched Southland Tales, I was watching the Cannes cut, the director's cut of the film for the first time, which is like 20-25 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, which I had seen before, but I had seen when the film came out in 2006, so it had been 15 years since I saw it, and I didn't remember very much about it. And everything that I said about The Matrix 4 can be applied here times 5. It is just so weird and wild. It's rough around the edges, sure, but it's so interesting and risky and weird and silly and serious, tonally kind of a nightmare with The Rock. Like, I mean, at the time, he was still The Rock, you know, he wasn't Dwayne Johnson yet, but like, you know, the biggest movie star in the world is in this really fucking weird movie where Wally Shawn looks like an Oompa Loompa, and he's a mad German scientist who has created a perpetual motion machine based on the ocean currents, but it's tearing holes in the reality, the fabric of time and space, and it's gonna end the world. There's a lot happening in this movie. This movie is bursting at the fucking seams with ideas and weird shit and weird casting, and it is often baffling and it is often confusing, but it is so unlike anything else that I just love the shit out of it and respect the hell out of it and really have a good time watching it. And I really highly recommend you get a hold of the Cannes cut. I don't know if that's available on streaming anywhere. I bought the Arrow Video Blu-ray release of it, which is how I watched it. So, yeah, big recommend there. Number 20 is Safdie Brothers with Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler.
How you doing, Holly? How's it going? How are you?
Good Pesach out.
All right, Larry, you're a Jew again. Welcome back.
I made a crazy risk, a gamble. And it's about to pay off.
So I want the Celtics to cover. I want the Celtics halftime. I want Garnett points and rebounds.
What do you know?
I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. That's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
I disagree. I disagree, Gary.
What is that?
I started it.
Yeah. Are you serious? You're taking my money all over town, placing bets.
I'm having very serious second thoughts.
Are you serious right now?
I know I fucked up.
Howard, where's the money right now?
Howard, got my money? Howard! Is it too late? I'm done. It means nothing. It meant nothing. Please. Give me another shot. You like to win, right? This is no different than that.
Black June power, nigga.
This is my fucking way.
You think I'm stupid, Howard? You and your whole fucking family. I heard you resurface your fucking swimming pool. You know how that makes me feel?
Never
You think your life is more important than
I
my
don't know who said that.
I told you about how things were gonna go. You like the way things are going now?
That's my family. Get the kids out of the house.
You having a good time?
Yes. This is me. This is how I win. KJ, it's game night. You should be stretching out.
What is he, a coach?
Nah, he's just a fucking crazy-ass Jew.
I felt conflicted about putting this low on this list. I also didn't rewatch this. I watched this movie for the first time in January of 2021. I was kind of late to the party on it. And so it's been almost a year since I watched it. And I thought maybe I should rewatch it. I bet it will go up on the list. But the reason I didn't is also the reason why I think it wound up as low on the list as it has, which is that this is not a fun movie. This isn't a movie that I would relish rewatching necessarily. It is a violently stressful movie, and a movie that instills more anxiety in me than any movie I have ever seen. Now that I've seen it and I know what's going to happen, maybe that's not going to be as severe, but truly Kafka-esque film where virtually nothing good happens in the entire movie. Howie, the main character played by Adam Sandler, he is just a terminally fucked up man who is driven by addiction, and he is incapable of making the correct decision at any juncture in his life, and pitfalls ensue repeatedly, and the ending, while satisfying narratively, is perhaps the only ending that it could have had, I will say. Not a fun movie. Impeccably crafted. The editing here, the pacing, the visual movement of the film, paired with One O Tricks Point Never's soundtrack, and I'm sure you know that how much I love One O Tricks Point Never. It is just incredibly crafted. Some of the best film editing that I've seen ever. Just crazy good. But it's not something that I would throw on just for fun, ever, probably. I would only really see myself watching this with other people who haven't seen it before to kind of gauge their reaction and try and sort of see it for the first time again through their eyes, I think. So, big recommendation. It's on Netflix currently if you want to watch it. Adam Sandler's performance is unbelievably good. And if you need any proof that the Academy Awards are not representative of what is actually the best in film, Adam Sandler didn't get nominated for this film. One of the best film performances of the last 10 years, easily not nominated. And it's 100% because it's Adam Sandler. If he had just been a guy and had done that performance. Anyways, number 19. So there's a couple. There are some. There's a point in the top 10 where I have taken a series of films and I have condensed it into one entry on the list. I've done this for a couple reasons. I'm not going to say what the series is yet. The reasons are because if I didn't, 3 of the top 10 spots would have been taken up by things in this series. So let's give room to other stuff. The other reason is because it's a complete series. It has begun and it has ended, and it is in totality. I can talk about the whole thing. But here at the number 19 position, we have a series that I have chosen not to break up, or not to condense. I have chosen to keep separate and talk about the pieces individually for the opposite, I guess, for different reasons. Because it is not finished, and there's no one knows when it will be or how many of them there will be. Also, there are 3 of them that have been released, but I have yet only seen 2 of them. So I didn't want to talk about the whole thing because I haven't seen everything that there is out there yet. So I thought, okay, I'll just, but it's fine. We'll let them have 2 spots. It's kind of it's a yin and yang, right? And so all of this long-winded, the number 19 slot is The World of Tomorrow, Episode 1 by Don Hertzfeldt from 2015. It was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Feature.
Hello, Emily.
Don Hertzfeldt is an animator who works in shorts. He is probably best known for the two series trilogies at this point that he has undertaken over the last 15 years or so, the first of which was a trilogy of short films which was later compiled into a feature-length film called It's Such a Beautiful Day. And then he has more recently, 2015, 2017, and 2020, done 3 shorts in the World of Tomorrow series. And so the World of Tomorrow is a science fiction series which is concerning a little girl. The conceit of the series was that Don Hertzfeldt recorded a bunch of conversations that he had with his 4-year-old niece. And so the series is about a little girl named Emily who is played by his niece using actual dialogue, improvised, spontaneous dialogue that he got her to say. And then he sort of recorded all of that and then built the stories around what he recorded. And the story of the first World of Tomorrow is about the little girl, Emily, and then a clone, a version of her from the future, who, in the future, people live infinitely by creating clones of themselves, and then the women are impregnated with clones of themselves, which are born, and then the original version transfers their memories to the new one, and through that they can live forever. And so this girl, Emily, is contacted through time travel, by a version of herself. I believe it's 3 or 4 versions in the future, so like 250 or something years in the future. And Don Hertzfeldt, he comes from, his early stuff is just pure comedy, really. Very influential on a lot of sort of like early internet humor and early Adult Swim type of humor. But then his stuff from It's Such a Beautiful Day and onward has also really had a lot more serious stuff in it too. And he's clearly a very sort of cynical guy who sees the world as a very brutal and awful place and chooses, gallows humor as his sort of coping mechanism. That's the way I kind of read it, at least. And so World of Tomorrow Episode 1 has a lot of really interesting world building and stuff about this, kind of world that they live in, that these characters live in. There's a digression about how in the future they have these clones, and the clones are born with no, personality. They're just sort of empty vessels, and this artist creates this art piece about David, clone David, where they just put this body in this tank in the art museum, and the body has no mind, and it just sits there, and it ages, and it spends its whole life just slowly growing old and dying in this cage for all of these people who watch it and oogle at it and, you know, take pictures with it. And it's really hard to express just with my words telling you about it how fucking sad that makes me. Don Hertzfeldt is incredible. I haven't seen the Third World of Tomorrow short yet, because all of the extra legal methods that I normally use to watch things do not have it available. But I bought the Blu-ray of the 3 that have been made so far, and it's on its way to me. So soon I will get to see it. And we will talk more about Don Hertzfeldt on this list. He's going to be coming up a few more times. Next, we've got something that I think it's a true testament to how good of a year this was that this is so low on this list. It is Bo Burnham's Inside.
Hey everyone, look who stopped by to say hello. It's Socko.
Hey!
Where you been, Socko?
I've been where I always am when you're not wearing me on your hand. In a frightening liminal space between states of being. Not quite dead, not quite alive. It's similar to a constant state of sleep paralysis.
Socko, we were just talking about the world and how it works.
Boy, that sounds complicated.
Do you have anything you'd want to teach us about the world?
I wouldn't say anything that you probably haven't already said yourself.
I don't know about that, Socko. How about you give it a try?
All right. The simple narrative taught in every history class is demonstrably false and pedagogically classist. Don't you know the world is built with blood and genocide and exploitation? The global network of capital essentially functions to separate the worker from the means of production, and the FBI killed Martin Luther King. Private property's inherently theft, and neoliberal fascists are destroying the left, and every politician, every cop on the street protects the interests of the pedophilic corporate elite. That is how the world works.
Really?
That is how the world works. Genocide the natives say you got to it first. That's how it works.
That's pretty intense.
No shit.
Which was a comedy special that Bo made for Netflix and released in May of this year. He made the whole thing himself during lockdown. Starting shortly after lockdown, in his guest house, he did everything for this, except for, I think, some of the, like, color correction and stuff in post-production. But, like, he filmed it, directed it, shot, edited, made all the music, all of the lighting and rigging and effects and everything. All of it was him. He did it himself, which is very impressive. And if you're familiar with Bo Burnham's work, you know that he does incorporate music a lot into his comedy. I had never been a huge fan of Bo Burnham. You know, he came up through YouTube. We're about the same age. And when I say about the same age, I mean that he is 7 days older than me. And when he first came out, wasn't my thing. His comedy from that era is very much of the time. And I feel like he probably doesn't feel super great about it anymore. But he has grown a lot, haven't we all? And this is, in the terms of like a comedy special, it's there's nothing else like it, first of all, because it's a comedy special filmed for no one, alone. And a lot of the special is very self-reflexive about that. And then also a lot of it is very self-reflexive about, like, what is the purpose of comedy. There's a song earlier in the film called Comedy that's about this sort of tongue-in-cheek idea of, like, saving the world with comedy, and, like, can comedy make a difference in the world when the world is, like, so fucked up. Then there's a lot of self-reflexive, him reckoning with, there's a song Problematic that's about his, you know, his history with being problematic and saying and doing problematic things and contributing to, you know, white supremacy culture and things. That's very, very, very good and funny too. But then as the special continues, as lockdown continues and the hair grows and the beard grows and the mind begins to wander, there's an intermission in the midway point of this special. And when we come back from the intermission, things have taken a very dark turn. And it becomes much more a sort of filmic, musical experience about living in this sort of late capitalist world. The pandemic being just sort of one particularly emblematic instance of this sort of dystopia light that we are in, and the way that we are incapable of changing things, and how overwhelmingly depressing and powerless that is. And Bo just sort of descends into the darkness in a way that few people doing, you know, stand-up or comedy or song and dance or whatever you want to fucking call this, few people have gone there. I think of the Patton Oswalt special, Annihilation, I believe it was called, that he made after his wife died. That's a good example of like going there, and I think that it's things like this are a testament to the power of comedy, where you can be funny, you can do comedy, but you can talk about really serious things. You can be more than just funny. You can be philosophical and thought-provoking and subversive and interesting and say really crucial things while being funny, even if it's only kind of funny, you know, which is the sort of realm that we enter at the end of Inside. I listened to the music from this quite a lot this year. A lot of what has held this back on the list for me is maybe the cultural context around the special and around Bo and like the fandom of Bo Burnham, which I really hate. I really hate people who like this, and like TikToker people who are using the songs, and Twitter and internet fandom. It's all, and I really don't like it. I really don't like those people. They feel like they are not my people. Don't like it. So that, I think, has held this back on the list. But don't let it hold it back from you. It's on Netflix. It's very good. It's a good time. Number 17. I don't really feel bad about it being this low, but I could see this rising in the future too. It is Fallen Angels by Wong Kar-wai.
Cause I'm cool.
This is the companion piece. Sequel is probably not the right word, but companion piece to his more popular previous film, Chungking Express, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. They both are about, lonely men in the sort of underworld of Hong Kong, and they're sort of like two sides of a coin. They both are two stories, but they are almost like direct opposites. For every way that they are the same, they are inverted as well. This is like the night to the day of Chungking Express. In Chungking Express, the two stories are isolated. We have one story and then the other. Here they're intertwined. Chungking is very, very sort of it's much more sort of light and soft and sweet, where this is much more dark. There are a lot of like very John Woo-esque shootouts of extreme violence and depravity. It's more about the nightlife and the things like that. And the first film was about police officers. This one's about criminals. I could go on and on. Wong Kar-wai is just fucking unreal. I haven't seen every movie he's made yet, but I've seen quite a few, and they are, wow, very good. And the first movie I saw back in theaters after, a year plus from lockdown was Happy Together, which was a Wong Kar-wai film about sort of a dysfunctional love story about two men from Hong Kong living as expats in South America. Wong Kar-wai is just really like there's this Letterboxd list that's very popular called Befriending the Lyrical Loneliness, which I think is maybe a little self-explanatory from the title. There's also another very popular Letterboxd list that is, I don't remember the exact name of it, but the title is basically like Loneliness in Neon Cities. And like those two, that's Wong Kar-wai, man. He is the fucking king of those aesthetics. Just the sort of the soft loneliness of the city, the bright lights, Hong Kong, and being alone in that sea of endless people who are constantly just a centimeter away but unable to ever connect with anyone else. Big mood, I will say. So did I like this as much as Chungking? No. But I've seen Chungking 8 times, and I've only seen this once. So we will see, I guess. Number 16, we have from 1988, taking it back, we have The Vanishing.
Je m'appelle Raymond Lemorne. Je suis sociopathe et claustrophobe. Je n'ai jamais trompé ma femme.
Ah.
Gabi, le tire-bouchon, s'il te plaît, dans le tiroir. Mais je m'empresse de vous dire que pour moi, le pire, ce n'est pas tuer. Parce que mine de rien, c'est devenu une passion. Tu as quelque chose dans la tête.
Vous êtes un menteur. Menteur? Non, je ne vais... Non. Oui? Et je veux...
Vous avez violé Saskia. Si elle est morte, je vais mourir moi aussi. Et si l'homme qui voulait savoir, c'était vous?
directed by George Sluizer. He's, he's Dutch, from Holland, and so I'm sure that is not how that is pronounced. Interesting fact about this movie, it is a Dutch movie, Dutch production, Dutch director, but a lot of the movie, most of the movie, takes place in France. It is in French, and so when Holland submitted this to the Academy Awards as the official Dutch submission for Best Foreign Film, they were disqualified because too much of the movie was in French. Thanks, guys. So, The Vanishing is a story about two men, and it sort of intertwines their stories together. And we start out with a man named Rex and his wife Saskia, who are Dutch, and they are on vacation in France, and they stop at a rest stop to get some gas, and while they are there, Saskia disappears, and Rex searches high and low, but he cannot find her. And then we move to 3 years in the future, and she's still gone, and Rex is still looking for her. But then we have the story of the man responsible for her disappearance, who is a Frenchman named Raymond, who is a self-professed sociopath. And we follow the story of him deciding that he wants to do this, and practicing and methodically planning out how to, and trying and failing and all of that. And then we move to the future, where we learn that the abductor has been communicating with letters to Rex over these years. And they finally, Rex issues an ultimatum on television saying that he wants them to meet. And so Raymond comes and he confronts him and he says, I'm the man that you've been looking for. And if you come to France with me, if you drive back to France with me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. But you have to, play by my rules. And I will tell you I will give you the truth that you've been searching for. And I'm not going to say anything beyond that, because the end of this movie, wow. But, it's a movie about compulsion, what propels us to do things. We have one man who is driven mad by his need for the truth, for his need to just know. And then we have another man who is driven by chaos, who is just doing these things because he can. And very frightening. Kubrick, I read, described this as the scariest movie that he had ever seen, even though there's almost no violence or anything like that in the movie at all. Just the atmosphere and the performances are so good, and the tension is so high that it's a freaky ass movie. It was in similar to one of my favorites, Funny Games, which was directed by Michael Haneke, the Austrian director, who remade his own movie a number of years later in English in America. This movie was remade a few years later in America in English by the director, starring Kiefer Sutherland, and by all accounts, the remake is really bad, and they changed the ending, which I won't say what the ending is, but I feel like it defeats the entire purpose of the movie if you change that ending. It definitely recontextualizes the entire movie and makes it mean something completely different than what it meant to begin with, which to me means that it's not really the same movie. I don't know. No interest in seeing that. This was really good. Criterion put it out, so I think you can watch it on the Criterion channel, and yeah, you should check it out. At number 15, we have another film from this year. We have the most recent offering from Paul Thomas Anderson. It is Licorice Pizza.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair. met the girl I'm gonna marry one day.
But her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go.
Listen, young lady.
But her friend is nowhere to be seen.
So how'd you become such a hotshot actor?
I'm a showman. That's what I'm meant to do.
To the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbara Streisand?
Barbara Streisand.
Sand.
Sand, yeah, like sands. Like the ocean, like
Barbara Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
But the film is a sad thing for.
This is fate that brought us together.
But she's lived it 10 times or more.
Our roads took us here.
She could spit in the eyes of fools.
You're not my director.
They ask her to focus on.
Do you really want to see my boobs?
Can I touch them?
See you tomorrow.
Fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go.
I think it's weird I hang out with Gary and his friends all the time. I think it's weird that I hang out with Gary and his 15-year-old friends all the time.
Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know
I'm not gonna forget you.
who's in the best-selling show.
Just like you're not gonna forget me. Gross.
Roll sound. Roll camera A. Roll camera B. Marking. Action. And coming Nancy!
Hello?
So I'm a big slut for PCA, and I have been my whole life. When I first got into film, when I was a teenager, young teen, 13, he was one of my faves, and and a lot of people who I really liked back then have faded a bit in my love for them. Him, not as much, though. I still pretty strongly adore his works. I just rewatched Punch Drunk Love a couple of weeks ago for the first time in quite a while, thinking that maybe that I didn't love that movie the way that I used to, and found that that is not true, and I really love that movie, and that is my favorite of his movies. One of the most dense films I've ever seen. There's just so much happening in that movie all the time. In the frame, so much happening, so much information being given to you. Anyways, we're not talking about that movie. We're talking about the new one, Licorice Pizza. So Licorice Pizza is a movie where Paul Thomas Anderson was given $40 million to make this big 2-hour and 20-minute romantic comedy, period piece about the early 70s in Los Angeles. And he's got some big names, really big names like Sean Penn and Bradley Cooper, and some cool, interesting names like Benny Safdie, one of the two directors of Uncut Gems, or Tom Waits makes an appearance in this film, or George DiCaprio, Leo's father, shows up in this movie. But our two leads are two people who have never been in a movie before. Now, that's not to say that you are not familiar with them. There is a certain amount of nepotism involved in their casting, I will say. Our male lead, Cooper Hoffman, is the son of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, who, for my money, one of the greatest actors to ever live, and very close friend and frequent collaborator with Philip Seymour Hoffman. They worked on a number of movies together, and Philip Seymour Hoffman appeared in Magnolia and Boogie Nights, and he was the antagonist of Punch Drunk Love, and he was also one of the two leads alongside Joaquin Phoenix in The Master. They worked together quite a bit. And so here we have his son, Cooper, And then the female lead is portrayed by Alana Haim, who has never really acted before, but she's known as being a member of the band Haim with her 2 older sisters, which is a pretty popular sort of indie rock pop band that's been successful since the early 2010s. They were discovered by Jay-Z, if I remember correctly, and they were put on like Rock Nation or something and propelled to stardom. Wow, are they both really good in this movie? Like for 2 people who have never been in a movie before, you really would not have guessed that if you didn't know that before and didn't know who they were, that this was their first movie. So this is a love story. It's an interesting love story. It's been getting some flack from some people because it's about a 25-year-old girl and a 15 to 16, he ages up in the movie, year-old boy. It's a romance. Kind of. It is. Between these 2 people. And so there's an age gap. Is it pedophilic? Whatever. But is she grooming him? Is she preying upon him? The movie doesn't treat it that way. It doesn't treat it as a sort of dark story or anything like that. It's a lighthearted, for the most part, film. And people have found that to be problematic. I don't necessarily find it to be problematic for a couple reasons. One is that, like I said earlier, just because there is content in a piece of art doesn't condone it, It's not necessarily saying that this is good. It's up to you to decide if it's good. The other thing is that I will say, even though I wasn't there, I can fairly confidently say that this kind of thing was not that weird in 1973. And I can say that with some amount of confidence because in 1972, my 17-year-old mother married my 23-year-old father, and I have asked both of them and numerous other people who were there at the time, wasn't that weird that this Vietnam vet, college-educated man seduced and married a 17-year-old high schooler? And you know what? Everybody said no. Every single person who was there at the time, their peers and their parents, nobody thought it was weird. Nobody thought it was wrong. Nobody thought it was bad. Doesn't mean it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. It's not up to me, I guess. Culturally, at the time, that sort of an age difference was not viewed the same way that it is 50 years later. And that is what it is. I found this movie to be really lovely. And the thing I really loved about it was that it's going to be different things to different people. I could see how, if I had seen this as a teenager, I probably would have related to Gary Valentine, Cooper Hoffman's character, more than I did. Personally, I really hated Gary Valentine. I thought he sucked, and he is annoying, and he's the kind of guy who, if he was alive right now, he would be like a crypto bro, and he would collect NFTs, and he would explain blockchain technology to women at parties, and he would be like that meme of the guy at the baseball game who's like doing this to the girl. That would be Gary Valentine. I really related to Alana Haim's character, and who is in her mid-20s and sort of aimlessly sort of wandering through life. You know, she's got these older siblings and stuff, and her family is always pressuring her and doesn't approve, blah, blah, blah. Pretty standard. The way I feel that way a lot. I know a lot of my friends and people my age feel that way a lot. And not really feeling like a grown-up, but not really feeling like a kid anymore either. And she's hanging out with this 15-year-old and his other 15-year-old friends, trying almost to like recapture the wistfulness of youth, but she can't really. It's sand through her fingers, but then she goes to try and grow up and work at this campaign office for the mayoral candidate, but that just feels wrong too, and she just sort of feels out of place with everything. And then Gary ends up being this sort of like rock for her through all of that. And I don't know, I just really thought this was such a sweet, fun, enjoyable, really well-made movie that, you know, I would say it probably ranks low in the pantheon of Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography. You know, it would be in the lower half if I was going to rank them all. But that's still really good. You know, that's like top 5 movies that came out this year. Good. So I'd say it's in theaters. It came wide released on Christmas. I just saw it in the theater yesterday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. So yeah, I just saw it yesterday, and it's really lovely. You should check it out. Number 14 is Netflix original series. It is the 2nd season of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. I was a little... I didn't know here whether I should do a... because I'm showing clips. I have, as I'm saying this, they're not playing while I'm recording, but I know I'm going to. I was torn between showing like a trailer, which is what I'm doing for most of these, or just showing one skit. And I'm gonna show a skit and not a trailer. And so this is one of the more popular skits from the season. It's also on the shorter end because the skits are usually more like 4 or 5 minutes. This is Coffin Flop. So check out Coffin Flop.
Spectrum is planning to drop 22 channels, including Corncob TV. They're saying by the end of 2022, Corncob TV won't be available on your cable menu. That means you won't be able to see some of your favorite Corncob TV shows, including Coffin Flop. They're saying they want to drop Corncob TV because we showed over 400 naked dead bodies on our show Coffin Flop. If you love Corncob TV shows, it's time to tell Spectrum no. They're saying Coffin Flop's not a show. It's just hours and hours of footage of real people falling out of coffins at funerals. There's no explanation, just body after body busting out of shit wood and hitting pavement. They're saying it's impossible that many dead bodies are falling out of coffins every day. And it's impossible that 1 out of every 5 of them are nude. I don't know what to tell you, bud. We're just shooting funerals and showing the ones where the bodies fly out. They're saying, no way. You must have rigged something. I didn't do fucking shit. I didn't rig shit. I've been waiting a long time for a hit on Corncob TV. I didn't fucking do this. They're saying we don't have the permissions of the family. I said we don't need permissions of the family. We're allowed to show him nude because they ain't got no soul. The guys at Spectrum think I'm just some dumb hick. They said that to me at a dinner. Call Spectrum and say, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about any of this. There's worse shit on the local news. This world's fucking so fucked up. And people are mad at me because I showed a bunch of naked dead bodies with their spread blue butts flying out of boxes. Really? I'm done. Do what you want. Pull the plug. I'll kill you.
Okay, so now I think you maybe have a slight grasp on the tone and the humor of Tim Robinson. Tim Robinson rose to notoriety as a writer and occasional performer for Saturday Night Live. He then also co-created and co-starred in the Comedy Central original series Detroiters. And then now he has this sketch comedy show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave. And earlier this year we got the 2nd season. And it is the best sketch comedy that we have had since Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job ended in 2010. Hands down, no qualifiers. It is just the best sketch comedy that we have had in 10 years. It is so unbelievably funny. And it's short. It's like 6 episodes, and the episodes are like 15 to 20 minutes long. But it doesn't matter. Every single sketch is fucking gold. Is super memorable, super quotable. You got the Dan Flash's shirts sketch. You've got the fucking ghosts busting out of the walls doing a huge fucking cum shot sketch. You got the coffin flop sketch. You got the driver's ed sketch. You've got the guy in the parking lot who doesn't know how to fucking drive and he doesn't know what any of this fucking shit means sketch. Like, if you haven't seen the show, you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I'm just trying to demonstrate to you that there are so many sketches on this show that are so fucking funny and so good. Now, earlier when I was talking about honorable mentions and I left What We Do in the Shadows off of the list proper because I said there's not much to it beyond it just being funny. I could say the same thing about I Think You Should Leave. But it is so funny. It is so funny that it is on the list anyway. And not only is it on the list, it's pretty high. We're at 14. We're higher than Licorice Pizza, a movie that's going to get nominated for Oscars and shit. That's how funny this show is. It's on Netflix. You have no excuse. If you like comedy, you should watch this show. It is unreal. And there is something to be said probably about bias, about how Tim Robinson's blend of surrealism and anger and confusion and reactionary, how his characters, there is a formula to his comedy where it's like every character finds himself in a situation that is silly, but their reaction to their situation is always to be as thick-headed as humanly possible, to refuse to budge, to be as bullish as they are capable of being, and to be as obscene and over the top as possible. And I really love that. It is so funny. It is funny every fucking time. You put them in that scenario and it is funny every time because nobody actually ever does these things that they do, but it somehow feels essential and real. It feels like how it feels to be trapped in a world of chaos and you just want to scream and shout and break things. And that's what these people do, actually. Love this fucking show. Number 13. I almost wanted to put this at like fucking 3, but I couldn't put it. I couldn't bring myself to put it any higher than this. It was in the top 10 for a minute, but it did drift out of the top 10 eventually. And this is a 5-minute short film on YouTube. You could be an asshole and say it's a YouTube video, but I say it's a 5-minute short comedy film from Conor O'Malley called Endorphin Port, which was released earlier this year. I'm going to show, since it's a 5-minute short, there's no trailer, so I'm going to show the first minute of Endorphin Port. Now, I'm going to let you watch the first minute of Endorphin Port. I'm going to cut it when he starts pushing the trash, I think. So I've watched this a couple times now. I have it pretty committed to memory. So let's watch.
We need a new place where you can do whatever you want. A new place called Endorphin Port. It's a new computer place that's gonna be absolutely beautiful.
Fucking computer's bullshit. It's fucking sick. It's not cool anymore. It's not fun. It's not fun to be on the fucking computer. They changed everything about it. It used to be so cool. We need a a new place on the computer where we can be epic mind soldiers who live by the Assassin's Creed and do the most epic of legendary behavior. I'm talking about a place that's not a website. It's not a website! It's a different reality. It's a whole new world where we can be whoever the F we want to be.
Do you understand what I mean when I say that this is what I'm thinking? This voice is in my brain all the time, talking to me. This is what my lizard brain sounds like. I want to just make you watch the whole thing. The first time I watched this, it was like an out-of-body experience. I was laughing so hard. I can't even remember the last time I laughed this hard at a thing. Some TikToks probably over the last year, but like beyond that. Like an actual, thing, not content or whatever. Conor O'Malley is really funny, and his sense of humor is very much up my alley. And this is my favorite thing that I've seen of his so far. I haven't watched everything that he's done yet. I'm getting there. There's something about, like, the rage, the urgency, the cynicism, the frustration of his character in this short, particularly when he starts talking about, the body and virtual reality. We can leave the body behind. We don't need to be trapped in these disgusting fucking prisons, these flesh prisons that we're stuck in. We're disgusting. We smell like shit and we look like shit. And your ass is too big, your titties are too small. You got a dick, but you want a pussy. You want a pussy. You want a dick. It doesn't matter. We upload our consciousness into the fucking internet, and then we can create our own virtual avatars. We can be the most beautiful version of ourselves that we want to be. And, dude, when I'm manic, when I'm having a bad day, like, that is just all I think about. I just obsessively just am like, and I just want to break my own fucking wrists and set myself on fire because the internet is supposed to save us, and it's not. And nothing has ever so accurately just weaseled its way into that very specific, manic, hateful feeling and nailed it down. And it's so funny because it's a mirror. I'm seeing myself in it, and I can laugh at myself. And man, it's just like so. This is really has found its target audience in me to a T. Let's just leave it at that. We're almost done. We got 2 left. Number 12 from 1998. Right? From 1997. Directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Is Cure. Now,
あんたの話が聞きたい。ケイさん、俺の声聞こえてる？聞こえてるよね。それがあんたが特別な人間である証拠だ。
単に人を殺すだけならここまでやる必要はないでしょうから。
なぜあんな殺し方したんですか？誰かから聞いたとか？
催眠暗示か？
可能性あるか？
犯罪はいつも
特別な意味があるように見える。大体無意味だ。
そんなつもりはない。俺はただ犯罪を説明する言葉を探してる。
この人はどうです？
知らない。
これはあなたですよ。
前は俺の中にあったものが今全部外にある。その代わり俺自身は空っぽになった。
Kiyoshi Kurosawa was one of a number of Japanese directors to rise to international fame in the late 90s and early 2000s in the boom of a sort of new wave of Japanese horror. A lot of those films were remade into very popular and successful American films, including Kurosawa's own film, Pulse, which was remade in America in 2006, but other films of that time of Japan that were remade into American films would be things like Ringu, which was remade into The Ring, or Ju-on, which was remade into The Grudge. And then you had other things that maybe weren't as popular because they didn't get American remakes, but were very important for the time, like the works of Takashi Miike, like Audition, or Ichi the Killer, or works of people like Sion Sono, who at the time were doing stuff like Suicide Club. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time, and Cure is earlier, a little bit earlier, 97, and it's interesting. It's a movie that Kurosawa has said was influenced a lot by Seven, David Fincher's Seven, which makes a lot of sense. But, David Fincher and Kubrick, they often get criticized for being cold filmmakers, right? They aren't emotional. Their films aren't emotional. They're not about emotions very much. And their style really emphasizes this. They're both noted perfectionists. They're obsessives about the craft, about the technical aspects of filmmaking. They shoot long and many takes, and months and months and months of editing down to the wire, etc., etc. Cure makes those guys feel like German expressionists in comparison. I have never seen a movie that feels so sterile and styleless and cold and detached. Never. It is, and you can't do that by accident. You can't stumble into this level of nothing. It is very exacting. It is supremely razor focused. The shots, the framing of this film, where you are almost always in a wide shot, very few close-ups. The camera almost never moves, and if it does, it's very little, and it's only to keep things in the frame. It's never to accentuate anything. It's never about moving the camera to create a feeling. It is purely practical. And the framing is never meant to emphasize a thing. It's never meant to convey an idea or highlight a point of the screen. It is merely zoomed out enough that we have everything that is important in the frame. And nothing more. I've never seen a movie that feels this way. I realize I haven't actually said what it's about. So this is, like I said, it's inspired by Seven, and it's a serial killer movie. And it's about a police officer, detective, who is investigating this series of murders where the various people are killing other people in the same way, where they're killing them and they're carving a big X into their chest. And they're doing it for seemingly no reason. They have no motivation, and they don't remember doing it. And they're not, even though they're all doing the same thing, none of them know each other. There's no connection between any of the murders. And nobody remembers doing it. They don't know why they did it. They just did it. And I'm not going to say more than that, because I don't want to spoil it, because it's a mystery. But this movie gets pretty crazy, and stylistically, like I was just gushing about it, but it's really incredible, and I really want to watch it again. I just watched it a few days ago, and I need to watch it with other people and see what they think, and kind of have some soundboards to bounce ideas off of with other people. Because this kind of story, this sort of police procedural, serial killer, or whatever story, it's a pretty popular trope at this point, especially, serial killers and true crime and stuff is the hottest it's ever been. But this is like the least sexy version of that has ever existed, which is really fascinating. And it's funny because it's not like, when I say it's the least sexy, it's not in the sense that it doesn't glorify it, in that it makes it feel like very gross or dark or whatever. Because those things, gross and dark, and it can be sexy. This is just nothing. It's sterile. It is cold. It is detached. It feels so impersonal to the point of ridiculousness. And I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that feels that way, which is really fucking cool. And I really need to see more of Kurosawa's movies. And the final movie of this first, half, it's more than half, but lengthwise will probably end up being half, is World of Tomorrow Episode 2. Once again by Don Hertzfeldt.
I'm going to see the new one, the part 2.
So in episode 2, we are again with little Emily, 4-year-old. This time we're visited by a clone of her from even further in the future, Generation 6. And the quandary that Generation 6 finds herself in is that she comes to Emily Prime, as she's known, because she retains the memories of Emily Prime, for the most part, and she has her own memories that she has formed, but her predecessors have died, and they're not going to be able to transplant their consciousness into her body. And because of this, her mind is deteriorating, and she's losing herself, basically. And so the way that she has decided that she can fix this is by coming back in time and finding Emily Prime, and they're going to overwrite Emily 6's mind with Emily Prime's. So she will, even though she's in an adult body, she will functionally become a 4-year-old. And in order to do this, they have to connect their minds. And in the process of connecting their minds, they share a single consciousness for a time. I'm getting fucking choked up. I've been really crying too much lately, man. The end of this short film, there's a part earlier in it where Emily Six talks about how when she was young, she had always dreamed of being a dancer. And I don't want to... I want to spoil it, but I don't want to really spoil it. So I'll just say that there is a moment near the end of this where Emily Six dances, and fuck, man, just thinking about it is making me cry. Just so indescribably beautiful and heartbreaking, and that's, you know, what I want. I want movies to break my heart, at least a little bit. And you know, when I sat down to write my letterbox thoughts about the two World of Tomorrow movies, the first thing I said was that Don Hertzfeldt makes the kinds of things where, even though they can be really cynical and sad and hard and unpleasant, even maybe, they're so beautiful. It feels like the entire range of human emotion and experience is somehow inconceivably boiled down into these 20-minute little films. The entire multitude of the lived experience of being a human being can be found in these movies. And the overwhelming power and beauty of that is top 3 reasons to persist and continue being alive. You know, which is something that sometimes I need extra motivation for. Like, I would say that, like, you know, it's like it's like love, and like the people that you surround yourself with, and like the things that you do for one another, and then like this shit like that, and then third place is probably like making something and being proud of yourself. And yeah, like that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the all of the fuel that is keeping me going are those things, and they're very big and important, and I am getting enough from them because here I am. But like, you know, when I watch a movie like World of Tomorrow, and a lot of the movies that are higher than it on this list too, it is not just entertainment. You know, it is about reckoning with existence and purpose, and that is really gratifying, and I'm so happy that I get to live in a world that has things like this and people like Don Hertzfeldt in it to make them. And I think I will leave it at that. I'm losing my voice and it's quite late, so I'll do the top 10 tomorrow. But thanks for sticking around, and I'm sorry that this is so long. I just have a lot to say about all of this, and I appreciate you watching and putting up with me crying. Crying on the internet, never a good look. Thank God, only like 40 people will probably ever see this, so I can live with myself. Good night, America.